Hey guys, I'm here in San Francisco at the Sparkcentral headquarters, and we're going to talk here with Davy Kestens. He's the founder and CEO about the future of customer experience. Let's go. Davy, let's talk about the future of customer centricity. What do you think will happen in the next few years with the expectations of customers in general?
I think that the expectations of customers in general will actually inflict a lot of damage to companies worldwide. The expectations of the customers are evolving at the fastest clip ever, where if you look at most generations that are older than maybe 25 years old, people who are older than 25, their behaviors and their expectations and how they interact with brands and businesses has been fairly consistent over the last few decades. What's happening now, though, is that since late 90s, early 2000s, the internet is just natural to everyone. Technology is natural to everyone. There's a lot of young people out there who grew up who wouldn't even be able to tell you the sound of a modem calling into the internet. They don't know what a VHS recorder is, or they can't explain any of that, but they do know perfectly how to tell you which apps work on the internet and how to work it, even to a point where they don't even realize when they are or not connected to the internet, as the internet is just everywhere, just like radio was when most people were growing up. You just turn it on and it would work, right? And those expectations are set. But what you see with the average person under 20 years old is that because they grew up in a world where internet was all around, and the effects of internet were that everything is fast-paced, things move at an incredibly rapid clip, you're multitasking all the time, messaging and texting with 10 friends sometimes at the same time, the brain is literally wired differently for younger generations to be able to cope with this amount of constant information. And what you see right now with all of these new services that are catering to that type of behavior that are coming out that make our lives a lot easier, it's also setting a new level of customer expectations. I like to call it the Uber generation, where people get frustrated when they order an Uber and the Uber is not there within 3 minutes, so they cancel and switch to a different, more expensive class that will be there in 2 minutes. And you see that type of behavior going everywhere, where where people's idea of customer satisfaction is no longer linked to just did I get what I bought, but it's really about like how fast was it and how easy was it for me as a customer. And that shift is something that's hard for a lot of brands to make. And I think a lot of companies who think they are in a stable spot are underestimating how the world around them is changing and how that might impact their business.
Okay. And if you look at expectations, connectivity, do you feel that companies should look at the Uber generation, let's say the people born after 2000, to define their strategy, even if they have an older audience? Would you recommend that?
The time span, it will have to happen anyway. For any industry, you have to start looking at what the younger generation is doing, what their behaviors and expectations are, and your business will have to cater to that. In certain businesses, the time span of doing that might be a little bit different than other ones. For instance, a funeral director company probably doesn't have to invest as much in the digitization of the world around them as, for instance, a telco has to, right? If you look at the post-2000 generation, they make up for about 24% of the world population right now. And post-2000, that means that some of those are already 17 years old, which means that in the next year, that generation with that set of expectations is going to be hitting the job market really fast. And what is 10 years in a business lifetime is very short, right? And so it really depends, of course, on what type of business model or customer persona you have, how quickly it will impact your business, but it is something that is inevitable. What we're also seeing is that even though you might have an older target audience of customers that you might work with, when it comes to digital, when it comes to technology, never has it been that the younger generation adopts the behavior of the older generation. It's always the opposite way. It's the young kid explaining to their grandma on how to use this new piece of technology, right? The number one reason why certain adults are starting to install WhatsApp, it's because their children are on WhatsApp, not the other way around, right? Children are still holding on to Facebook Messenger because their parents are on it, but that's sort of like the last reason why they still use it in a lot of cases. So even though you might have an older target audience, you shouldn't be surprised that their behavior will start shifting as well and not remain static, simply because they are being influenced by younger generations, especially around their technological behavior.
What do you think the impact of AI will be on customer experience?
I think AI will make it a lot cheaper for brands to scale their customer experience.
Okay.
However, that doesn't mean that AI will necessarily make your customer experience better. I think that is really a part that's core to the brand and to their organizational structure and what they care about, rather than just something that can be solved with AI. AI is an enabler. AI is a way of scaling existing business processes or new business processes, making them a lot more effective. And making sometimes it's easier to do certain things or make the threshold to do something lower. But AI is not the magic solution to creating a better customer experience, right? What it could do, for instance, is, well, how do you pair, for instance, a customer support manager or a customer support rep in a call center up with an AI so that they can do triple the volume while remaining the same customer experience? So there are cost savings to be gained there. And similarly in other parts of the business, but just saying that AI will like save customer experience or make it better, I think that's sort of like a farce or a fallacy that you shouldn't buy into.
Yeah, so it's not about technology.
After all, it's about your purpose and your intent rather than what technology you use. Technology is typically only a behavior, an enabler to getting there.
What's your perspective on the usage of bots in customer experience?
Short term and historically, I think there hasn't been a single bot that has done a good job. If you look at the bots that have come into the market over the last 2 years, and bot is a very like short-term hype that hasn't been around for very long, is that they basically have been thinking, okay, how do I automate every single customer interaction and pre-script the interactions, right? It's sort of the replacement of, here's an FAQ. Oh, you don't want to look through the FAQ anymore because it's too big and grand. Thus, here's an automated script that will sort of like guide you to the same answer, but then it's conversational. Those are the most bots that are out there.
It's like with a tree structure that you pre-program, right?
Right? Where you basically start with hi, and you hello back. Do you have a question about these and these topics or something else? You have free-form text in certain cases, but eventually you're just building a very massive Christmas tree of so many if this then that statements, which will become very hard to maintain, very hard to keep up to date, and be user-friendly. Because the moment you go down 5 different tree structure questions, the customer will just get aggravated because it's not getting to the point. And what's also interesting is when you start looking at the bots that have been implemented historically, which are more free-form text, AI-based, those have been quite challenging because AI is not yet at the point where it can function as a true human being, especially linguistically. But also that those implementations have literally been the same experience to customers as taking an untrained sales customer service rep straight off of the street and putting them in your call center and having them respond to customers. And that experience has been horrible, right? There's a few examples like that out there, and I'm sure if you Google like horrible bot experience, that those answers are in there, or examples are there. I think that some companies are now already starting to switch the way they think about bots. They're looking at it more in 2 cases. One is, how do we enable or set up a bot to enable an agent to be as effective and as quick and to the point as possible by gathering the necessary data that person needs, right? So there's this iterative, consistent process that has to happen around, for instance, identifying your customer. Who are you? Why are you here? What's the biggest issue you have before you get routed to a live agent who will help you with your issue? You're seeing more and more of those popping up. For instance, Western Union just at the F8 launched a new bot which allows, for instance, peer-to-peer transactions where you can transfer money through different currencies to different places in the world with your friends through Facebook Messenger, right? But then the moment something goes wrong or the bot doesn't really know what you're saying, it suggests like, do you want to talk with customer service? And then when you do so, it actually transfers it over to a customer service agent who sees it in the customer engagement platform, ours that they now use, but whatever solution they would have. And it already put all the information required for the agent to kind of follow up and see what happened and how they can resolve it. So that's sort of like the next generation of bots, where it's more of a delegator or collector of data to then present to someone who can help them the best, and also decide which person is that. Yeah. And I think in the short term to midterm, we'll see a lot more of those popping up, where it's sort of a similar replacement of the IVR system of calls, where you call in, press 1, press 2, press 3 for all of these reasons, and then eventually you come to a real person. Or you get an FAQ answer given to you if it's an easy question. Where I really think bots combined with AI will be very helpful and valuable and make agents so much more efficient in working with customers is where you start replacing very iterative processes in the middle of a customer conversation by an automation, by a bot that could potentially be triggered by AI. Yeah. For instance, when I'm having an issue, let's say my house burned down, and I call my insurance company, or you email your insurance company, or send them a message, or whatever way you want to talk to them, you would prefer to talk to a human being who has the emotional power to have an understanding of what you're going through right now, right? Because these like pre-made like text fields and like descriptions of what your answer should be probably won't satisfy the customer in that moment when their picture albums of their grandchildren burn to ashes, right? But having said that, when the moment comes around that you got to give them some account information or put in the US your social security number and you go into a certain process, you're basically all you're thinking about, this is taking too long, and you just want it to move fast and you want to get it over with, right? It's like going through purchasing process, changing account information, changing your billing address, putting payment information in, whatever a process might be. There's these like microscopic business processes that just take up a lot of time, are recurring in every single customer conversation. And it's important that AI evolves to a point where halfway through or 10% in a customer conversation with a live agent, the system can recognize, oh, we're now going into this process. This conversational automation can take over the conversation, and then when everything is collected and done, push it back to the live agent. So you start creating this idea of super agents where what they are really good in and what humans are good in is the emotional connection. Like you leverage the crap out of that, and then everything that can be automated or as a process needs to be automated. Right. So I see a lot of potential in the combination of live agents with bots and AI to really create a better, faster customer experience while retaining the human connection. Because that's truly the gold and where the value will be in the next decade for customer-centric organizations. Every single product, every single service is being commoditized. Every brand wants to become a global brand, wants to sell to everyone everywhere. Look at an airline. For most routes, you have multiple airlines flying that route, and they cost approximately the same. Mm-hmm. And it's either a Boeing or an Airbus, and you might sit an inch further or closer to a crying baby. And that's kind of it. You don't really care anymore about the color of the plane. Loyalty is no longer related to a brand. It's related to an experience, and ideally an effortless experience, right? It's convenience. And I think this is a slogan you guys use as well. Like, convenience is the new loyalty. And you see that a lot with this younger generation. So if you can enable a very personal human connection experience, which is effortless, that's when you gain loyalty in the next decade. It has nothing to do anymore with the logo or the brand that's slapped on the device. I mean, Microsoft is gaining market share again over Apple within a certain target audience where Apple used to be the strongest, even while those people are Apple fanboys. Like, and that's really interesting to see, and you'll see a lot of that happening in the next decade. Yeah. It's like Uber, right? Mm-hmm. They had a ton of challenges in the last few quarters, right? Very bad press, everything. But then at the same time, they announced that it was their best revenue quarter ever. Yeah, we were at Uber a few days ago. Zero impact of bad PR. Zero impact. The worst PR any company could ever hope for, right? The brand shot to pieces. Yep. Best sales quarter ever. Why is that? Because it's incredibly convenient to use Uber worldwide. So what are they loyal to? The brand? No. A lot of people couldn't give a crap about Uber's brand. They think it's a horrible quote-unquote company based on whatever perception that they got. But it's the most effortless, convenient way of transportation in most global cities. And that is a perfect example of how convenience is a new loyalty.
And can we put that extreme, that if you have really the perfect, best working interface, that reputation does not matter at all? Or is that too blunt?
I truly believe that the best products with a great product market fit that are incredibly convenient to use, that people can afford, will win. Yeah. Regardless if you have the worst brand in human history. You're creating a monopoly based on convenience.
Which is an extreme switch in, how budgets should be spent in companies, because my feeling is many big companies still pretend like nothing happened in the last 10 years, and they fall in love with their own marketing campaigns. They figure out KPIs to prove to themselves that they still work.
And why this ad in the newspaper should still be done even though there's zero revenue coming from it.
And it's like the investment in branding is still increasing year after year. And they're always complaining that they don't have enough money to have the same good interfaces like Amazon has or Uber has or Spotify has or whatever. So do you see the same thing, that those budgets are not following the trend, or do you see exceptions?
I see the same thing. But it's really interesting. Things don't seem to change fast enough, or people don't seem to get it because they're used to a way of working. And I don't think that enough people see enough tangible, in-your-face proof. And even if they do, they see it as this is like some company somewhere. And they don't realize that they're not only eating their market share, but actually creating a whole different market that makes them irrelevant. Uber did that with the taxi industry. I was talking with a person a few days ago, and he, I think you know him, he is in the self-storage business. And I thought it was hilarious. And he was like, yeah, and we have an app and this and that. And so the whole idea is, well, you send boxes to a customer that they have to order a day ahead. So they have to mentally think, like, tomorrow I want to self-storage stuff. A day ahead, then they fill the box, and then they got to let them know that the box is full, and then a day later they'll come pick up the box and store it for them, and then with the mobile app you can order them back, right? And then I showed them a mobile app of a company here, Omni, which basically has very similar business model. And so if you don't really look into the business, you think it's exactly the same. But it's literally, it says, do you have stuff that you want to store? And then the button is yes. You take a photo of what you want. Within 30 minutes, someone is where you are. They take it, they package it, they take it away. They take a professional photo of it. It goes into your album, and they store it. And within half an hour, it's out of your place. You didn't even have to plan of it being gone. And you have your entire catalog of stuff within your mobile app. You can rent it out to friends. You can lend it, and they take track of everything. You can donate it. You can have it delivered in a different location. So if you want skiing, you can have them delivered in Tahoe, where there's the snow mountains. And the service is almost exactly the same, but the digital convenience that's being delivered is miles ahead. And it still didn't... The answer that I got was like, yeah, but we do that as well. And that's when you look at functionality and offering rather than customer convenience. And that's just, it's going to take a while, I think, for business leaders to understand that the level of effort and convenience should be the number one metric by which you measure the quality of your products.
How should they start? I mean, if they hear this and they think, okay, Davy's right, how do you start with that?
That's a really good question, actually, because it really depends on what type of business you have and the product offering, whether it's like a physical offering or a technical. And immediately I would start looking at the market around you and like what type of companies are starting to offer services that are in a different space, but do overlap either in customer model or audience or in delivery model, and see what some of these startups are doing, because I think it'll be tough for these brands to do intrapreneurship and invent their own killer within the organization. I think that's a fallacy that people think that they can intrapreneur and build their own competitor to have it taken over, because the there will constantly be competing priorities, and then the biggest revenue always wins, right? Look at Blockbuster. So I think it's very important to look at what some other players outside are doing. And so that's the first. What I would also think is like every single touch point that your customer has, start looking at that and talk with those customers and figure out like what would frustrate customers about that. And stop looking with that team that's focused on this new pursuit. Stop looking at the conventional metrics that you value your business on. For instance, within the whole customer service experience, there was a company that was telling me that, an airline actually, that they had the lowest amount of customer complaints in the whole industry. The lowest amount of customer complaints in the whole industry, but their market share was slipping. But we have very happy customers, like the lowest amount of complaints, highest rating percentage, but customer loyalty is slipping, our revenues are slipping, what's going on? And it's really funny. And then you go to their mobile app that they built for their mobile savvy generation, their customers, and you go to the help page, and then there's a line that you can click on, a button that's like file a complaint. And then it opens up a 3-page non-mobile optimized form that you'll need 30 minutes to fill in. And then when you lose internet connection, you have to start over, and then you can send it. You have to like zoom in on every single field to like fill it in.
And no
of course,
complaints.
they never get complaints, right? But their business operations aren't built around like the efficiency of the customer, and that's like an efficiency of filing a complaint. But that's in every single part of the business. Again, what's the most efficient? Having boxes delivered a day later than you order them, fill them in, have them picked up a day later, or press a button and have the problem be gone in 30 minutes, right? It's all about effort. So put a team in place that really care that develops a new form of customer effort score, and that's their metric. And they have to look at every single touch point of the life cycle of the customer with your business and ask themselves, as a customer, imagine I have a 5-second attention span. How much effort do I feel it takes me to do this step within the customer lifespan? And go through the entire thing, and then look at technology, then look at your operations and how can we fix that or add more technology to make that better and easier. But it's not going to work by looking at the metrics that you've done before and then asking the question, why isn't this higher or better? The metrics that were built on the engagement model of yesterday won't work in that of tomorrow.
All right, well.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Perfect.
Thank you
I like to make
very
stuff
much.
up.
Thank you.
See ya.
See you.